The private room fell silent. 40 pairs of eyes turned toward the man sitting in the corner. "Come on, Lin," someone said with a grin. "Don't tell me you're still unemployed." Laughter rippled around the table. Lin Hao looked down at his faded jeans and the old black jacket he'd been wearing for years. The sleeves were worn at the edges and his sneakers had clearly seen better days. He smiled faintly. "Actually," he said, taking a sip of tea, "my company went bankrupt." For a split second, nobody said anything. Then the room exploded. "No way. I knew it. Man, that's exactly how I imagined your life would turn out. Holy crap, this is even better than I expected." The loudest laugh came from Zhang Zhiqiang, their former class president. Back in high school, Zhang had been the kind of guy teachers adored, responsible, ambitious, always at the top of the social ladder. Now 28 years old, he owned a successful construction materials company. At least that's what everyone said. Rumor had it he made millions every year. Tonight he wore a custom suit, a gold Rolex on his wrist, and the smug expression of a man who believed he'd won at life. "Lin Hao," Zhang said, shaking his head dramatically, "I've always told you, you need to be realistic." He raised his wine glass. "You can't spend your whole life chasing impossible dreams." Lin nodded. "You're right." The room burst into laughter again. Nobody noticed the tiny smile at the corner of his lips. If they knew the truth. If they knew that the man in the old jacket was worth more than everyone in this room combined, they probably wouldn't be laughing. But he wasn't here to show off. Not tonight. Tonight he was here for only one reason. To find someone. 3 days ago, his personal assistant had walked into his office carrying a file. "Mr. Lin," she had said, "we found her." "Hurry." 2 words that had changed everything. His hand had trembled as he opened the folder. Then he saw the name. Su Wangqing. 10 years. It had been 10 years since he had last seen that name. 10 years since she disappeared without a trace. 10 years since he had searched every city he could think of. And now, she was coming to this reunion. Which was why he sat here tonight, pretending to be a failure. Waiting. Watching. Hopping. A waiter opened another bottle of wine. The reunion grew louder. "I bought a Porsche last year. I own 3 apartments in Shanghai. My son goes to an international school, costs me $30,000 a year." Everyone was bragging. Because that's what high school reunions really were. Not a celebration of friendship. A competition. Who had the most money? Who drove the best car? Who married the prettiest spouse? Who won? Zhang stood and raised his glass. "Tonight's dinner is on me, everyone." The room erupted into applause. "President Zhang is amazing. So generous. You're the most successful person in our class." Zhang grinned like a king, receiving praise from his subjects. Then he looked at Lin Hao. "What about you?" The room quieted. "How much debt are you in these days?" Laughter again. Lin slowly put down his teacup. "About 7 million. Silence. The smiles froze. Zhang blinked. "How much?" $7 million. He paused. "My company went under, still owe the bank." For 3 seconds nobody moved. Then, "What? You owe 7 million. You're kidding." Someone actually shifted their chair farther away from him. As if he might ask to borrow money. Zhang nearly choked laughing. "Oh my god. Lin Hao, you're incredible. Most people start businesses to make money, you started one just to lose 7 million. The table exploded again. Classic Lin. He was third from the bottom of our class, nothing's changed. Consistent failure. Even Lin had to admit. It was kind of funny. He calmly poured himself another cup of tea. At that exact moment, the door opened. Everyone turned. A woman stepped inside. And suddenly, time stopped. She wore a simple white dress. Her long dark hair rested on her shoulders. She looked older than she had in high school, of course. More mature. More elegant. But somehow, even more beautiful. Lin's hand froze around his teacup. It was her. Su Wangqing. 10 years had passed. And yet one look at her brought back every memory. The old classroom. The summer afternoons. The giant banyan tree behind the school. The girl who had once handed him an ice-cold Coke and said, "I think I like you." Back then he had been the school's most notorious troublemaker. Bad grades. Skipped classes. Got into fights. No future. She had been the exact opposite. Top student. Teacher's favorite. The school beauty. Nobody understood why she liked him. Not even him. But she did. And for 3 wonderful years. She had been his entire world. Until graduation day. Then she vanished. No calls. No messages. No explanation. Like she never existed. He had searched for her for years. Even after building his company from a tiny startup into one of the biggest investment firms in the country. He never stopped looking. And now, she was standing right there. Their eyes met. She froze. He froze. Neither of them spoke. Finally she whispered, "Lin Hao." He smiled. "Long time no see." For a brief moment her eyes turned red. Then she looked away. Nobody noticed. Except him. Zhang immediately jumped to his feet. "Wangking, come sit here." She nodded politely and took the empty seat across from Lin. The atmosphere became strange. Almost awkward. But Zhang didn't notice. He was too busy trying to impress her. "Wangking, I recently bought another apartment downtown." No response. "I'm thinking about upgrading to a Bentley." Nothing. "I still haven't gotten married." A few people immediately began teasing. "Oh, President Zhang still has feelings for the school beauty. You two would make a perfect couple." Zhang laughed proudly. Su Wangking simply smiled politely and sipped her tea. She didn't even look at him. For the first time that evening, Zhang seemed embarrassed. Then his eyes shifted back toward Lin. And a cruel smile appeared. "Lin Hao," he said loudly, "since you owe $7 million, what's your plan?" "Pay it back." "How?" "Slowly." The room burst into laughter once more. Zhang shook his head. "You know what, we're old classmates." He reached into his pocket dramatically. "I'll lend you 50,000. More applause. "Wow. President Zhang is too kind. What a great friend." Lin almost laughed. A billionaire. Being offered $50,000 out of pity. Life really did have a sense of humor. Then, buzz. His phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. And suddenly, everything around him disappeared. A bank notification. Deposit received, $5 million. $5 million. Sender. Su Wangking. Lin's breathing stopped. At the same moment, another message appeared. It was from her. He slowly opened it. "I sold my house. Use this to pay your debts first. Whatever's left, I'll help you pay it back." His fingers trembled. He looked up. Across the table, Su Wangking was quietly watching him. Her eyes were red. But her expression was firm. Determined. As if she had already made up her mind. The room remained noisy. Everyone was still laughing at the man who owed $7 million. Nobody knew that just seconds ago, someone had sold her only home for him. Someone who hadn't seen him in 10 years. Someone who believed he was completely broke. Someone who still loved him. Lin stared at the message. For the first time in many years. His eyes stung. And suddenly he realized something. Tonight, the people in this room were about to receive the shock of their lives. Because the loser they were laughing at wasn't a loser at all. And the story they thought they knew had only just begun. Lin Hao couldn't take his eyes off the message. "I sold my house, use this to pay your debts first, whatever's left I'll help you pay it back." $5 million. Not 5,000. Not 50,000. Everything she had. For him. 10 years had passed. She didn't know he was rich. She didn't know what kind of man he had become. All she knew was that the boy she once loved was in trouble. And without hesitation, she had given him everything. The noisy room suddenly felt very far away. "Hey Lin." Someone waved a hand in front of him. "You okay? Did the debt collectors text you?" The table erupted in laughter again. Lin slowly put down his phone. Across from him, Su Wongking lowered her eyes and held her teacup with both hands. She looked nervous, almost afraid, as if she feared he might reject her help. Something inside him twisted painfully. 10 years. For 10 whole years, he had wondered why she disappeared. He had been angry, heartbroken, even resentful. But at this moment, all those feelings disappeared. Because a woman willing to sell her home to save him could never have stopped loving him. Everyone, Zhang suddenly shouted. The room quieted. I think we should all raise a glass to Wongking. Yeah. Absolutely. To the school beauty. People stood and lifted their glasses. Someone asked, so Wongking, where are you working these days? A small company, she answered softly. Salary must be pretty good. She smiled. It's okay. Are you married? The question made the room instantly interested. Several people leaned forward. Su Wongking shook her head. No. The room exploded. Seriously. No boyfriend either. She hesitated, then shook her head again. No. A huge grin spread across Zhang's face. Opportunity. The entire table knew exactly what he was thinking. See, one classmate said. The school beauty is still single. You've got a chance, President Zhang. Go for it. Even the waiter was smiling. Zhang adjusted his expensive watch and sat a little straighter. Wongking, he said casually, I've been thinking about settling down recently. She looked up politely. Oh. I've got 2 apartments downtown, business is doing well, honestly all I need now is someone to share my life with. A few people nearly choked trying not to laugh. He wasn't even trying to hide it. I mean, Zhang continued, smiling confidently, some things are just meant to be. The room burst into cheers. Say yes already. Get married tonight. President Zhang has been waiting 10 years. Su Wongking looked uncomfortable. I'm sorry. Before she could finish, Zhang interrupted. Actually, I still remember your favorite drink from high school. Her eyebrows lifted slightly. You do? Of course, he grinned, lemon tea with less sugar. She looked surprised. Then she smiled politely. Thank you. That single smile nearly made Zhang float off his chair. But he didn't notice something. The entire time, she had never looked at him the way she looked at Lin Hao. Not even once. Zhang suddenly turned toward Lin. By the way, Lin. Here it comes. You're still single too, right? Lin nodded. I am. Because of debt. The room laughed. Lin smiled. Maybe. Then you've got it rough, Zhang sighed dramatically. No money, no family, $7 million in debt. He leaned back in his chair. That's a hard life. Someone shook his head sympathetically. Someone else looked relieved that their own life wasn't that bad. Then Zhang raised his glass again. Tell you what. He took out a business card and slid it across the table. I'll give you a job. Everyone looked impressed. You would. Of course, Zhang smiled generously, we're classmates. He looked at Lin. I can pay you 40,000 a year. The room applauded. What a guy. President Zhang is too kind. That's real friendship. Lin almost laughed. $40,000. He spent more than that on coffee every month. Still, he picked up the business card. Thank you. Zhang smiled proudly. Then, a vibration. Another message. This time from his assistant. Mr. Lin, the investors have arrived. The signing ceremony starts in 40 minutes. He sighed. He had completely forgotten. Tonight, he was supposed to sign a deal worth $12 billion. His assistant had begged him not to skip it. But finding Su Wongking mattered more. He typed back. Delay it. Almost immediately, his phone rang. He rejected the call. It rang again. Rejected. Again. The 4th time everyone noticed. Who keeps calling, someone asked. Lin shrugged. Work. Zhang laughed. What work? Debt collection. More laughter. Lin smiled and said nothing. At that exact moment, the door burst open. A middle-aged man in a black suit rushed inside. His forehead was covered in sweat. He looked around the room desperately. Then his eyes landed on Lin. Mr. Lin. The entire room froze. The man hurried over and bowed. We've been looking everywhere for you. Lin rubbed his temples. Damn it. They found him anyway. Zhang frowned. Excuse me, I think you've got the wrong person. The man looked confused. Wrong person. Yes, Zhang laughed, this guy is bankrupt. The man blinked. Then he looked at Lin. Then back at Zhang. Then he laughed. I'm sorry, bankrupt. Nobody understood why he found that funny. He straightened his tie. You mean Chairman Lin Hao of Sky Capital? The room became silent. What? The man pulled a document from his briefcase. Chairman Lin Hao. Founder and CEO of Sky Capital. Current company valuation. He glanced at the paper. Approximately $43 billion. Silence. Nobody breathed. Nobody moved. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand. Crash. It shattered on the floor. Still nobody reacted. 43 billion. Someone's chopsticks dropped. Another person forgot to blink. A woman covered her mouth. Zhang stared at the man as if he had spoken another language. What? The man frowned. You didn't know. No answer. Because the entire room had already stopped functioning. Then, boom. The room exploded. 43 billion. No way. That's impossible. Are you serious? You're joking. The man looked offended. Does this look like a joke? He handed over a business magazine. On the cover, a photo of Lin Hao, the youngest self-made billionaire in Asia. The magazine slipped from Zhang's fingers. His face turned white. Then green. Then white again. His lips trembled. No. This couldn't be happening. 5 minutes ago, he had offered this man a $40,000 job. And $50,000 in charity. The entire room suddenly remembered. The old jacket. The faded jeans. The calm smile. He had known. He had known everything. And he had let them laugh. A cold chill spread through everyone's body. At that moment, Lin slowly stood. The room immediately became silent. The suited man lowered his head. Mr. Lin, the investors are waiting. Lin sighed. I'll be there soon. Understood. The man stepped aside respectfully. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared. Finally Zhang forced a smile. Lin. Yes. You're really a billionaire. Lin thought about it. Then nodded. I guess so. The room nearly fainted. I guess so. Who says that? Someone worth $43 billion says I guess so. Then Zhang suddenly remembered something. His face turned even paler. The debt. $7 million. Wait, he stammered. You said you owed $7 million. Lin nodded. I do. The room blinked. Then. Oh, he looked thoughtful, that's one of my subsidiaries. Silence. It lost $7 million last year. Silence. Someone nearly had a heart attack. $7 million. Was a rounding error to him. The room looked ready to cry. At that moment Lin turned. He walked slowly toward Su Wangqing. She looked up at him. Her eyes were full of confusion. He held out his phone. This money. She bit her lip. Is it not enough? The room froze again. Not enough. $5 million wasn't enough. What kind of conversation was this? Tears appeared in her eyes. I sold the house quickly, she whispered. I know the price was lower than it should have been, but if you need more, I can borrow some. Silence. Dead silence. Every person in the room felt like their heart had been punched. She didn't know he was rich. She thought he was ruined. And she was still willing to sacrifice everything. That kind of love didn't exist anymore. Lin stared at her. For a long time he couldn't speak. Finally, he asked the question that had haunted him for 10 years. Wangqing. She looked up. Why did you disappear? The room instantly became quiet. Her face turned pale. Her fingers tightened around the teacup. For several seconds, she didn't move. Then, a tear fell onto the table. Flub. Everyone felt it. The atmosphere had changed. This wasn't a reunion anymore. This was the beginning of a story nobody understood. She lowered her head. And finally whispered. Because I was paid to leave you. Lin froze. What? She slowly raised her tear-filled eyes. Someone gave me $1 million. The room fell completely silent. To disappear from your life. The room was so quiet that the sound of the air conditioner suddenly seemed deafening. Lin Hao stared at Su Wongking. I don't understand, he said softly. Her eyes filled with tears. After graduation, someone came to see me. Who? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lowered her head and slowly opened her purse. From inside, she took out an old envelope. Its edges were worn and yellow, as if it had been carried around for years. She placed it gently on the table. I've kept this for 10 years. Lin picked it up. Inside was a photocopy of a check. $1 million. And beneath it, a letter. He unfolded it. The moment he saw the signature, his entire body froze. Lin Jiangguo. His father. The room seemed to tilt. No, he whispered. It couldn't be. His father had died 8 years ago. And before that, he had lived like an ordinary worker his entire life. A simple man. A kind man. The kind of father who repaired old furniture instead of buying new ones. The kind of father who wore the same jacket for years. The kind of father who never had much money. How could he possibly have given someone $1 million? His hands trembled. What is this? Tears rolled down Su Wongking's face. He came to see me. My father. She nodded. He told me you were sick. Lin blinked. What? He said you had a serious illness and needed treatment overseas. The room went silent again. He said, she continued, her voice breaking, that you might not survive. Lin felt as though someone had punched him in the chest. What are you talking about? I was never sick. I know that now. She wiped away her tears. But I was 18 back then. Her voice trembled. I believed him. Another tear fell. He said you didn't want me wasting my youth waiting for someone who might die. Lin's breathing became uneven. He told me. She paused. To forget you. Nobody at the table moved. Some people looked shocked. Some looked guilty. Some simply couldn't believe what they were hearing. The famous couple from high school. The pair everyone thought had broken up because of young love and bad timing. Had actually been torn apart. On purpose. I cried the entire night, she whispered. I didn't know what to do. She looked at him. I loved you too much to watch you die. Lin felt his throat tighten. So I left. Her voice became almost inaudible. I changed my number. I deleted everything. I disappeared. Silence. 10 years. 10 years of searching. 10 years of wondering. 10 years of anger. And the answer was sitting in front of him. She had never stopped loving him. She had left because she thought she was saving him. Lin slowly sat down. His mind was blank. Nothing made sense. His father. No. It couldn't be. His father would never do this. Never. There had to be another explanation. Did he really come himself? He asked. She nodded. I met him twice. And you never doubted it. She gave a bitter smile. He knew everything about you. The stories you told me. The places you liked. The things you dreamed about. He knew things only your father would know. Lin said nothing. Because that made it even stranger. How could his father have done such a thing? And where had $1 million come from? Suddenly, a thought struck him. He looked up sharply. Something's wrong. What? My father didn't have that kind of money. The room went silent again. And he had no reason to separate us. He looked at the letter. Then at the signature. Then back at Su Wongking. This doesn't make sense. She frowned. What are you saying? He slowly stood. I think someone lied to you. The room's atmosphere changed instantly. Someone pretended to be his father. Or used his father's name. His phone suddenly rang. It was his assistant. Mr. Lin, are you coming to the hotel? Not yet. Sir, there's something you need to know. Her voice sounded strange. What? We've investigated the information you requested. His expression changed. And there was a pause. Then, Mr. Lin, your father wasn't who you thought he was. The room became silent. What do you mean? Please come to the hotel immediately. Her voice was shaking. There's something you need to see. 30 minutes later. The presidential suite of the Grand Imperial Hotel. Lin Hao stood by the window. Su Wangqing sat nearby, still holding the old envelope. The entire room was filled with lawyers, assistants, and members of his security team. On the table sat a thick stack of documents. His chief assistant took a deep breath. Mr. Lin. She pushed the files toward him. You should read these. He opened the first folder. Then froze. His eyes widened. Because the words on the first page read. Founder of Sky Capital Group. Lin Jiangguo. What? He turned another page. Another. And another. Each one felt like a bomb exploding in his head. 20 years ago. His father had been one of the most mysterious businessmen in the city. Founder of a massive corporation. Worth billions. A legend. Then, he had disappeared. Changed his identity. Lived an ordinary life. Raised his son. And left everything behind. Lin slowly lowered the file. No. It couldn't be. He remembered his father fixing old bicycles. Making noodles in their tiny kitchen. Complaining about electricity bills. That man had been a billionaire. There's more, the assistant said quietly. She handed him another document. We've discovered who visited Miss Su 10 years ago. Lin looked up. His heartbeat quickened. Who? She opened the folder. Inside was a photograph. The moment he saw the man's face, he stopped breathing. Because the man looked familiar. Very familiar. The assistant spoke softly. His name is Lin Jianai. Silence. He's your uncle. The room exploded. My what? Your father's older brother. Lin stared at the photo. He barely remembered him. Only vague memories from childhood. A tall man. A cold smile. Then one day, he had simply vanished. According to our investigation, the assistant continued, your father and uncle had a serious conflict 20 years ago. She took a breath. And we believe. She looked at him. That he deliberately separated you and Miss Su. The room became deathly quiet. Why? The assistant's answer came like a knife. Because your father intended to leave everything to you. Silence. And your uncle didn't want that. Lin slowly clenched his fists. He wanted you to fail. He wanted you broken. He wanted you to lose everything. So he destroyed the person you loved. No one said a word. Even Su Wangqing had gone pale. For 10 years, their suffering had been part of someone else's plan. A cruel game. A calculated move. Lin's phone suddenly rang. Unknown number. He answered. A deep elderly voice spoke. Hello Xiaohuo. Only one person had ever called him that. His uncle. Lin's expression turned cold. Lin Jianai. A chuckle came through the phone. You're smarter than I expected. Why? Silence. Then. Because everything your father left behind should have been mine. Lin's grip tightened. You ruined our lives. Another laugh. No. The old man sounded almost amused. I merely delayed your happiness. You should thank me. For the first time in years. Lin felt genuine anger. Pure anger. Then his uncle said something that made his blood run cold. Oh, and one more thing. His voice became darker. You should protect Miss Su. Silence. Because starting tonight, she's involved too. The call ended. The room stood frozen. Lin slowly lowered the phone. Su Wangqing looked at him. What does that mean? He didn't answer. Because for the first time, he realized this wasn't about a broken romance anymore. This wasn't about family. This wasn't even about money. Somewhere in the shadows, a much bigger game was being played. and they had just become pieces on the board. At that exact moment, the hotel doors burst open. A security officer ran inside. His face was pale. "Mr. Lin. What happened?" The man swallowed hard. "Someone is buying our company's shares." Lin frowned. "So?" The officer looked terrified. "It's a hostile takeover." Silence. "Who?" The officer handed him a tablet. On the screen, a company's name appeared. And beneath it, Ultimate Beneficial Owner, Lin Jianai. The room went completely silent. His uncle had made his move. The war had finally begun. The presidential suite was silent. Everyone stared at the tablet in Lin Hao's hand. A hostile takeover. His own uncle was trying to steal his company. But somehow, Lin didn't look surprised. He looked angry. Very angry. He placed the tablet on the table and turned toward the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city light stretched endlessly beneath him. 10 years ago, he lost the woman he loved. 8 years ago, he lost his father. And now, someone wanted to take everything else. A cold smile appeared on his face. "Fine." Everyone looked at him. "If my uncle wants a war." He turned around. "I'll give him one." Immediately the room came alive. "Contact the legal department. Call our financial team. Prepare a share buyback. Move $10 billion into our market account." His executives blinked. 10 billion. Just like that. The chief financial officer swallowed. "Mr. Lin, are we going all in?" Lin buttoned his jacket. "No." He smiled. "We're going to bury him." The next morning, the entire financial world exploded. Sky Capital announces massive stock buyback. Mysterious investors acquire billions in shares. War for a $40 billion empire. News channels couldn't talk about anything else. Business analysts went crazy. Financial websites crashed. The stock market turned into a battlefield. By noon, more than $15 billion had changed hands. The company's stock price soared. Then dropped. Then soared again. Every investor in the country was watching. Nobody understood what was happening. But everyone knew one thing. A war had begun. Meanwhile, Lin Hao wasn't paying attention to the market. He sat quietly in his office. Across from him sat Su Wongking. Neither of them had spoken for several minutes. Finally, she broke the silence. "You really became a billionaire." He smiled faintly. "I guess I did." She laughed softly. "You haven't changed." "I've changed a lot." "No." She shook her head. "You're still the same person." He looked at her. "How can you be sure?" She smiled. "Because the first thing you did after becoming rich." Her eyes softened. "Was look for me." Silence. For the first time all morning, Lin didn't know what to say. She was right. He had searched for her in every city. Hired private investigators. Used resources that governments would envy. But he never found her. Until 3 days ago. "Why didn't you marry someone else?" he asked. Her expression changed. Then she looked out the window. "Because I never forgot you." His heart skipped a beat. "I tried." She smiled bitterly. "I really did. But every time I met someone." She looked at him. "I compared them to you." Silence. "And nobody ever won." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, knock knock. The door opened. His assistant entered. She looked nervous. "Mr. Lin." "What is it?" "We've discovered something else." She handed him another file. "This concerns your father." Immediately the atmosphere changed. Lin opened the folder. Inside were old newspaper articles. Photos. Financial records. Documents dating back 20 years. At the top of the first page was a headline. The disappearance of the founder of Horizon Group. Horizon Group. The original name of Sky Capital. His father's company. He continued reading. 20 years ago, the company had nearly become one of the largest corporations in Asia. Then, overnight, its founder disappeared. And so did its second largest shareholder. Lin frowned. Second largest shareholder. His assistant nodded. She looked at Su Wangking. His name was Su Zhengguo. The room became silent. Su Wangking blinked. What? She looked confused. Who? The assistant took a deep breath. Your father. Silence. A complete and utter silence. My father. Yes. She laughed nervously. That's impossible. My dad was a teacher. Nobody answered. Because nobody knew how to answer. The assistant slowly placed another document on the table. A photograph. A young man in a suit. Standing beside Lin Jiangguo. And next to them, a beautiful woman holding a little girl. The little girl looked no older than 5. She was smiling brightly. Her eyes widened. No. She picked up the photo with trembling hands. The little girl. Was her. That's impossible. Her voice broke. My parents were ordinary people. The assistant looked at her sympathetically. I'm afraid they weren't. The room fell silent. For several moments, all anyone could hear was the ticking of the clock. Then, another knock. This time, it was the head of security. He entered quickly. Mr. Lin. What now? We've found Zhang Zhiqiang. Lin frowned. What about him? He wants to talk. An hour later. Detention Center number 3. The former class president looked 10 years older. Gone was the expensive suit. Gone was the arrogant smile. He sat behind the glass wearing a prison uniform. When he saw Lin Hao enter, he gave a bitter laugh. You want? Lin sat down. What do you want? Zhang looked tired. Your uncle is going to lose. Silence. Why are you telling me this? Zhang looked up. Because he isn't the real boss. The room suddenly felt colder. What? He has someone above him. Lin narrowed his eyes. Who? Zhang shook his head. I don't know. What's his name? I've never heard it. Then what do people call him? A long pause. Then, they call him boss. Lin stared at him. That's it. Zhang laughed weakly. Yeah, that's all I know. Lin almost rolled his eyes. That wasn't helpful at all. But then, Zhang's expression suddenly changed. There is one thing I know. What? He looked directly into Lin's eyes. Your father wasn't supposed to die. Silence. The world seemed to stop. What did you just say? Zhang swallowed. 8 years ago. I accidentally overheard a conversation. Between your uncle and this boss. Lin's heartbeat quickened. What did they say? Zhang's face turned pale. They said. He took a deep breath. Lin Jiangguo is finally dead. Silence. Now the plan can begin. Boom. It felt as if lightning had struck the room. Lin slowly stood. His chair fell backward. Say that again. Zhang looked terrified. They were celebrating. The words came out in a whisper. They acted like they had been waiting for it. A cold chill ran down Lin's spine. His father hadn't died naturally. No. That couldn't be right. Could it? His fists clenched. So my father. He couldn't finish the sentence. Zhang lowered his head. I don't know what happened. I only know what I heard. Silence. Then for the first time Zhang looked ashamed. My mother is sick. Lin looked at him. If I go to prison. His voice trembled. Please don't let her know what I did. The room was quiet. For a long time Lin didn't say anything. Finally he nodded. I promise. Tears filled Zhang's eyes. Thank you. As Lin stood to leave, Zhang called after him. Lin. He stopped. Be careful. What do you mean? Zhang looked terrified. That man's bossy. He scares even your uncle. That night, Lin drove back to his childhood home. The old house stood in complete darkness. Nothing had changed. The same rusty gate. The same old tree. The same worn-out front door. He stepped inside. Dust filled the air. Memories rushed back instantly. His father reading newspapers. Cooking dinner. Scolding him for getting into fights. For years he thought they had been poor. Ordinary. Simple. But now, he knew everything had been a lie. A sudden voice interrupted his thoughts. Lin. He turned. Su Wonking stood beside a bookshelf. Come look at this. She pointed. Something was strange. The bookshelf wasn't attached to the wall. Together they pushed it aside. Behind it was a steel door. Silence. Lin's heartbeat accelerated. What is this? Neither of them knew. But somehow, they both understood. The answers they had been searching for were waiting on the other side. The steel door looked ancient. Dust covered its surface, and the old lock had probably not been touched in years. For a long moment, neither Lin Hao nor Su Wonking said a word. Then Lin slowly reached out and touched the cold metal. My father never mentioned this room. Su Wonking swallowed. Maybe he wanted you to find it one day. He nodded. Maybe. Or maybe he had hoped his son would never need to. The lock had a keypad. 4 digits. Lin frowned. What was your father's birthday? Su Wonking asked. He entered the numbers. Error. Your mother's birthday. Another error. His own birthday. Nothing. For 10 minutes they tried every important date they could remember. Nothing. Finally Lin stepped back inside. I don't know. The room fell silent. Then Su Wonking suddenly froze. Wait. She looked at him. What? The date your father met my father. Lin blinked. What? She smiled faintly. When we were in high school, your father once told me a story. She looked toward the old window. He said he met his best friend on a rainy day in October. Lin frowned. You remember that? You'd be surprised what girls remember. She smiled. He said it happened on October 26th. Slowly Lin entered the numbers. 1026. Click. The lock opened. Both of them froze. For several seconds nobody moved. Then the heavy steel door slowly creaked open. A dark staircase appeared, leading underground. Half an hour later, the lights came on. The secret room wasn't large. It looked more like an old study. There was a wooden desk, several bookshelves, a safe, and an old video recorder. Everything was covered in dust, as if time itself had stopped inside this room. Lin's breathing became uneven. Somehow, he knew. The answers were here. He walked toward the desk. On top of it sat a small note, written in his father's handwriting. To my son. His hands trembled. He picked it up. There was only one sentence. If you're reading this, then I've already failed to protect you. Silence. Lin felt a sharp pain in his chest. For 8 years, he had missed his father every single day. And now, it felt as though the old man was standing beside him again. What does it mean? Su Wonking whispered. He shook his head. I don't know. But somehow, he had a terrible feeling. A very terrible feeling. Then he noticed the safe. There was no keypad. Only a keyhole. A strange old-fashioned keyhole. As if it belonged in another century. Beside it was another note. The truth lies inside. Lin frowned. A key. He searched the desk. Nothing. The shelves. Nothing. The drawers. Nothing. Then, his eyes landed on the video recorder. There was a videotape inside. Its label read, 3 days before my death. Silence. Slowly he inserted the tape and pressed play. Static filled the screen. Then, an image appeared. An older man sat before the camera. His hair had turned gray. Wrinkles lined his face. But his eyes were exactly the same. Sharp. Calm. Kind. Lin stopped breathing. Dad. The man on the screen smiled. Xiao Huo. The familiar nickname nearly broke him. If you're watching this, then I suppose I'm gone. The room became painfully quiet. I wanted to tell you the truth many times. But I couldn't. Because the earlier you knew. He paused. The sooner you would die. Su Wongking's eyes widened. Even Lin froze. What kind of final message was this? This wasn't a farewell. It was a warning. His father continued. There are things in this world worth killing for. And there are secrets people will destroy entire families to keep hidden. He sighed. Unfortunately, I spent 20 years protecting one of those secrets. The room suddenly felt colder. Then, the old man looked directly into the camera. First, I owe you an apology. He smiled sadly. You thought I was an ordinary worker. I wasn't. You thought we were poor. We weren't. You thought your life belonged to you. A long silence. It didn't. Lin's hand slowly clenched. Everything that happened to you. It was planned long before you were born. Silence. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Then his father said something even stranger. And Wonking. Both of them froze. The old man smiled gently. You should be standing beside him right now. Su Wonking's eyes widened. He knew. On the screen, Lin Jiangguo nodded. Because you were always meant to. Silence. Then he reached into a drawer and took out an old photograph. It showed 4 people. Lin Jiangguo. A handsome young man. A smiling woman. And a little girl. The little girl was unmistakable. Su Wonking. She nearly dropped to the floor. No. Her voice trembled. That's me. The old man continued speaking. Your father and I built our first company together. 20 years ago. He was my best friend. And my greatest partner. Lin and Su looked at each other. Neither of them spoke. Because neither of them understood. Then came the sentence that changed everything. Su Wonking. Your father isn't dead. Boom. It felt like lightning had exploded inside the room. What? She stared at the screen. No. The old man nodded. He had to disappear. He had to fake his death. To protect you. Tears immediately filled her eyes. Her father. Alive. For 20 years. Impossible. It couldn't be. Yet the man on the screen had never lied to them. Then, he said something even more shocking. And you are not ordinary people. You never were. He took a deep breath. The reason both of you were hidden is because someone has been looking for you since the day you were born. The room went completely silent. Looking for them. Why? The old man reached into his pocket and pulled out a silver key. Its shape was unlike anything either of them had seen before. This key controls everything. Lin frowned. A key. To what? The old man smiled. Most people believe money is power. They're wrong. The real power. He held up the key. It opens doors. Then his expression became serious. 20 years ago, your father and I created a trust. We placed everything inside it. More than $50 billion in assets. Silence. Complete silence. 50 billion. Su Wonking looked as if she had forgotten how to breathe. But the old man wasn't finished. There are 2 keys. He held up the first. I have one. Then he looked directly at the camera. The second key. A long pause. It belongs to Su Wonking. Boom. The room exploded. What? Su Wonking nearly fell backward. Me. She shook her head frantically. No, that's impossible. Then, a memory surfaced. The necklace. The one her mother had given her when she was 8 years old. The one she had worn every day since then. The one she had never taken off. Her hands began shaking. Slowly, she reached toward her neck and removed the necklace. There was a tiny silver pendant attached to it. She had never opened it. Not once. She pressed it gently. Click. The pendant opened. Something fell into her hand. A tiny silver key. Identical. Exactly identical. Silence. Neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Then, a loud crash exploded upstairs. Bang. Both of them jumped. Another crash. Then shouting. Men's voices. Search the house. Find the key. Move. Lin's expression changed instantly. Someone had found them. Then, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. Only one sentence. Give me the keys. or people die tonight. The sender's name was hidden. But somehow, he already knew. The game had reached its final stage. And the person behind everything was finally making a move. Get down. Lin Hao grabbed Su Wongking's hand and pulled her behind the old desk. Another crash echoed from upstairs. Glass shattered. Heavy footsteps thundered through the house. Whoever these people were, they weren't amateurs. They had found the house too quickly. Too precisely. Which meant only one thing. Someone had been watching them. The entire time. Lin's phone buzzed again. Another message. You have 10 minutes. Bring me the keys. A third message followed. Don't make the same mistake your father did. Lin's face darkened. Whoever was behind this knew exactly what had happened 8 years ago. Dad, he whispered. A hand touched his arm. He turned. Su Wongking's face had gone pale. Are they here because of me? He shook his head. No. Then he corrected himself. Not just because of you. This was bigger than both of them. Much bigger. The old videotape. The hidden trust. The 2 keys. And now, armed men breaking into his childhood home. Someone had been waiting 20 years for this moment. Suddenly, the secret room's door burst open. 3 of Lin's bodyguards rushed inside. Mr. Lin. The team leader was breathing hard. There are more than 30 men outside. 30. This wasn't a kidnapping. This was an assault. Can we hold them? The bodyguard hesitated. For a while. Not the answer Lin wanted. Then, a voice echoed from above. Linhao. Silence. The voice was deep. Old. Calm. Almost amused. I know you're down there. Everyone froze. The voice continued. Come out. No one has to die tonight. Another pause. Unless you make me wait. The bodyguards exchanged uneasy glances. Lin slowly stood. Stay here, he said to Su Wongking. No. She grabbed his arm. Don't go. He looked at her. The fear in her eyes was real. She had already lost her father once. She wasn't willing to lose someone else. I'll be okay. No, you won't. Her voice trembled. Whoever this person is, he's dangerous. She was right. But hiding wasn't an option anymore. Because this had never been about money. Or business. This was about his father. About the truth. And about ending a nightmare that had lasted 20 years. He gently squeezed her hand. Trust me. For a long moment she said nothing. Then slowly. She let go. The living room upstairs looked like a battlefield. Broken furniture. Shattered glass. The front door hung from its hinges. More than 20 men dressed in black stood around the room. And in the center sat an elderly man. He wore a perfectly tailored gray suit. Gold-rimmed glasses rested on his nose. He looked more like a university professor than a criminal mastermind. The old man smiled. At last. Lin stopped walking. The 2 men stared at each other. Then, the old man stood. Hello, Lin Hao. Silence. Do I know you? The old man chuckled. No. But I knew your father. The room suddenly felt colder. You are. The old man smiled. Shen Tianhao. Silence. The name hit him like a truck. The photograph. The videotape. The warning. This was the man. The one his father feared. The one behind everything. For 20 years. For 10 years. For 8 years. Everything had led to this moment. Shen Tianhao looked around the old house. Your father and I spent a lot of time here. You knew my father. Knew him. He laughed softly. We were partners. A pause. And enemies. Lin's eyes narrowed. Did you kill him? Silence. The smile on Shen Tianhao's face didn't change. But his eyes became cold. That's a very direct question. Answer it. The old man slowly removed his glasses. No. The room fell silent. I didn't kill your father. Lin stared at him. Then Shen smiled. But his death. He paused. It was certainly convenient. Rage exploded inside Lin. The bodyguards took a step forward, but Shen Tianhao raised one hand. Instantly, all his men drew weapons. The room froze. Easy. He smiled. I didn't come here for a fight. Then why are you here? Shen looked directly into his eyes. For the keys. Silence. They don't belong to you. The old man laughed. Oh. They don't belong to your father either. He slowly walked toward the fireplace. They belong to history. Lin said nothing. Because he didn't understand. Shen sighed. You children know so little. Then he turned around. Do you know what your father and Su Zhengguo really created 20 years ago? A trust fund. No. The old man's smile widened. That's what they wanted everyone to believe. Silence. What are you talking about? Shen's eyes sparkled. The trust was merely a cover. A distraction. He looked toward the basement. The real treasure. He smiled. Is information. Boom. The words hit like thunder. Information. What information? But Shen ignored the question. Instead, he looked at Lin carefully. You resemble your father. Silence. He also had this annoying habit. What? Never knowing when to quit. The old man sighed. I gave him many opportunities. To join me. To become rich. To rule together. His expression darkened. But he chose morality. The word sounded almost offensive in his mouth. And now he's dead. Silence. Shen put his glasses back on. Give me the keys. No. The answer came immediately. The old man smiled. I expected that. He reached into his pocket. Then tossed something onto the floor. A photograph. Lin looked down. And froze. The photo showed Su Wangqing. Taken just a few hours ago. She was entering the hotel. A second photo. She was standing beside him. A third. She was leaving his office. The blood drained from his face. Shen smiled. I've been watching her. Silence. For a very long time. The room suddenly felt freezing cold. What do you want? The old man looked almost disappointed. I've already told you. The keys. And if I refuse? Shen's smile disappeared. Then she dies. At that exact moment, a loud voice came from the doorway. No. Everyone turned. A man was standing there. Tall. Elegant. Middle-aged. And somehow familiar. Su Wangqing appeared behind him. Her eyes were filled with tears. Dad. Silence. The room exploded. Lin's eyes widened. The man slowly walked inside. He looked directly at Shen Tianhao. 20 years of hatred burned in his gaze. You won't touch my daughter. Shen's expression changed for the first time. Su Zhengguo. The two men stared at each other. Like old enemies meeting on a battlefield. The newcomer smiled coldly. Long time no see. Shen's face slowly darkened. No. He whispered. You're supposed to be dead. Su Zhengguo took another step forward. So were you. Silence. Then. Shen Tianhao suddenly laughed. A deep, terrifying laugh. Interesting. He looked at Lin. Then at Su Wangqing. Then back at Su Zhengguo. The whole family is finally together. A long pause. His smile widened. Perfect. The room fell silent. Because something in his voice sounded wrong. Very wrong. Then Shen Tianhao said the words that made everyone's blood run cold. That means I can finally finish what I started 20 years ago. The room went completely silent. And for the first time that night, Lin Hao realized something terrifying. The war for the keys had never been the real objective. Shen Tianhao wanted something else. Something much darker. Something that had begun long before any of them were born. The old house had never been this quiet. Shen Tianhao's smile slowly faded as he looked at the man standing before him. Su Zhengguo. Alive. After 20 years. For the first time that night, something resembling fear appeared in the old man's eyes. Then he laughed. A cold, humorless laugh. So you've both survived. Su Zhengguo stepped forward. I promised I'd come back. And I promised I'd end this. The two men stared at each other. Neither blinked. Neither looked away. Lin Hao suddenly realized something. This wasn't a business rivalry. This wasn't even about money. This was war. A war that had started 20 years ago. And now it was finally reaching its end. You've wasted enough lives, Shen, Su Zhengguo said calmly. Enough. Shen smiled. I haven't even begun. He looked at Lin. Then at Su Wangqing. You know what your fathers did 20 years ago? No one answered. The old man laughed softly. They stole my future. Silence. Together the three of us built an empire. His eyes turned cold. I was the one with the vision. I was the one with the strategy. And I was the one who deserved to control everything. But they disagreed. He looked at Su Zhengguo. They wanted to expose me. They wanted to destroy everything we had built. His expression darkened. So I destroyed them first. The room suddenly felt cold. You ruined our lives, Su Wangqing whispered. Shen shrugged. People get hurt. They always do. To build an empire, sacrifices must be made. Lin's fists clenched. You're insane. The old man smiled. No. I'm honest. Silence. Your father understood that eventually. He knew I would never stop. He knew I would wait 20 years if I had to. He knew I would come for the keys. The room went still. Then, he also knew, Shen continued quietly, that one day I would come for his son. Rage exploded inside Lin. You threatened him. The old man said nothing. Which was answer enough. For 8 years. Lin had blamed himself. Wondered if there had been something he could have done. But now he knew. His father had spent his final years protecting him. Protecting him from this man. You don't deserve to speak his name. Shen smiled. And yet here we are. He raised his hand. The armed men stepped forward. Give me the keys. No. The answer came from Su Wangqing. Everyone looked at her. She stepped beside Lin. Her hands were shaking. But her voice wasn't. You'll never get them. The old man sighed. Stubborn. She looked directly at him. You destroyed my family. You destroyed his family. You stole 20 years from us. Tears filled her eyes. But you don't get anything else. Silence. For a moment. Shen simply stared at her. Then he laughed. You really are your father's daughter. Suddenly. The sound of helicopters filled the night. Everyone looked up. Searchlights appeared through the broken windows. Then. Sirens. Dozens of them. Shen's smile vanished. What? The front door burst open. Armed police officers flooded into the house. FBI, nobody move. Drop your weapons. Hands where we can see them. The room exploded into chaos. Shen's men lowered their guns. Some tried to run. Others froze. Within seconds, the entire house was under police control. Shen Tianhao stood motionless. His face had gone pale. Then, Lin smiled. The old man looked at him. You. Lin pulled out his phone. I wasn't just listening tonight. He pressed a button. A recording began to play. Every word. Every confession. Every threat. Everything. Shen's expression finally broke. No. You admitted to everything. You threatened us. You confessed to your crimes. The old man looked around desperately. The police. The evidence. The witnesses. For the first time in 20 years. He had lost. Completely. An officer stepped forward. Shen Tianhao. He placed handcuffs on the old man's wrists. You are under arrest. Silence. As he was led away, Shen suddenly stopped. Then he looked at Lin. You think you've won? No one answered. The old man smiled sadly. Money, power, revenge. He shook his head. They never make people happy. Then he looked at Su Wangqing. And love. A bitter laugh escaped him. Love is even worse. For a moment. He looked very old. Very tired. Then he disappeared into the night. And with him, 20 years of darkness finally came to an end. 3 months later. The trial became the biggest news story in the country. Shen Tianhao and his criminal organization were convicted on dozens of charges: fraud, corruption, murder conspiracy, money laundering, market manipulation. The empire he had spent 20 years building collapsed in a matter of weeks. Lin Jianai received a lengthy prison sentence. The hidden network behind them was dismantled. And finally, the truth about Lin Jiangguo and Su Zhengguo became public. They weren't villains. They weren't cowards. They were men who had spent their lives protecting their families, protecting the truth, protecting the future. As for Sky Capital, its stock price soared. Its valuation doubled, then tripled. By the end of the year, it had become one of the largest investment companies in the world. People called Lin Hao a legend, the youngest financial genius of his generation, the billionaire who defeated an empire. But whenever reporters asked him about success, he always smiled, because they never asked the right question. One evening, 6 months later, he stood on a beach. The sunset painted the ocean gold. Beside him sat Su Wangqing. For a while neither of them spoke. Then she smiled. "It's finally over." He nodded. "Yeah." A long silence followed. Then she looked at him. "Do you regret it?" "What?" "Everything. The 10 years. The searching. The pain." Lin thought about it. Then he smiled. "No." She looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because if he regretted the pain, he would have to regret finding her again. And that was impossible." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small box. Her eyes widened. "No way." He laughed. "I've been carrying this around for 6 months." She covered her mouth. "Lin." He slowly knelt on one knee. The ocean breeze grew quiet. Even the waves seemed to stop. 10 years ago. His voice trembled slightly. "You disappeared. I thought I'd lost you forever." Her eyes filled with tears. "But then you sold your house." He smiled. "For a man you thought was bankrupt." She laughed through her tears. "And I realized something." "What?" He opened the ring box. Inside was a diamond ring. "I owe you a debt." She blinked. "A debt?" He nodded. "I owe you 10 years. I owe you 1,000 unanswered questions. I owe you every tear you cried because of me." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "And I owe you a wedding." She covered her face and began crying. He smiled. "So." He took a deep breath. "Will you marry me?" For a moment, she couldn't speak. Then, she laughed. Actually laughed. Through all the tears. Through all the years. Through all the pain. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out another ring. Lin stared. "You." She smiled. "I was planning to propose first." Silence. Then both of them burst out laughing. They laughed until they cried. And cried until they laughed again. Finally she nodded. "Yes. Yes, you idiot. Of course I'll marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger. She slipped hers onto his. And as the sun disappeared beyond the horizon, they kissed. For the first time in 10 years. 6 months later, their wedding was held at their old high school. The place where everything had begun. The place where a top student had fallen in love with the school's troublemaker. Thousands of guests attended. Business leaders, celebrities, old teachers, former classmates. Even the old security guard from the school gate came. And of course, their class group chat exploded. "I can't believe they're actually getting married. This is crazier than a movie. Who would have thought the guy who ranked third from the bottom would become a billionaire? And still marry the school beauty?" At the wedding reception, someone shouted, "Hey, Lind." Everyone turned. It was one of his former classmates. The man grinned. "So, do you still owe $7 million?" The entire room burst into laughter. Even Lin laughed. He looked at Su Wangqing. Then he held her hand. And answered, "Yes." The room became quiet. "What do you owe?" someone asked. He smiled. "I owe her 10 years of youth." I owe her weddings. And I owe her a lifetime of happiness. Silence. Then, thunderous applause. Su Wongking's eyes turned red. She pinched his arm. You're so cheesy. He laughed and pulled her into his arms. Outside, the old banyan tree still stood. The wind still crossed the schoolyard. Everything looked exactly the same. Except this time, the boy and the girl got their ending. Years later, people still asked Lin Hao the same question. What was the luckiest thing that ever happened to you? Was it becoming a billionaire? Was it inheriting $50 billion? Was it building a global empire? He always shook his head. Then he remembered that text message. The one that arrived during the reunion. I sold my house, use this to pay your debts first, whatever's left I'll help you pay it back. And he smiled. Because the luckiest thing in life is not finding money, not finding power, not becoming rich. It's finding one person who is willing to give you everything when the whole world believes you have nothing. And somehow, against all odds, he found her again.